Welcome to another action-packed episode of the Profitable Home Services Podcast. I'm your host, Diane Gardner, and I'd like to welcome Justin Wise from The Different Company to our show today. Let me tell you a little bit about him. In 2010, Justin was broke in a dead-end job, making just $30,000 a year. How many people can relate to that? I know a lot of us can. With a new baby on the way, and no clue how he was going to make ends meet for his growing family. He had never started a business before, didn't have an MBA, and knew virtually zero other entrepreneurs, but he knew how to get noticed. So he launched his first business, and with 90 days, he was making in a month what he used to make in a year. Since then, he sold a couple businesses, generated millions in revenue, consulted with New York Times bestselling authors to global brands and everyone in between. Justin, welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you here today.
You know, it's almost like I wrote that intro myself.
Well, I think you probably sort of did. I think you kind of grabbed it off of your page.
Yeah, something like that.
Sounds familiar, right?
Yes, very familiar.
Well, this program is all about helping home service businesses find those invisible profit leaks. It's real easy to go to the P&L and pull out the big ones, but those silent ones are harder to find. Recently, I was browsing through some of your blog articles, and I came across one called The Content Machine. And I was so impressed with that one. Do you mind if we talk about that one today?
Let's do it.
All right. In there, you talk about building a path so that people will not only know, like, trust you, love you, they'll gobble up whatever you have in there. You want to tell us a little bit how that works?
Yeah, so the way it works is, in any relationship, any business, any organization I've ever worked with, either my own or through consulting, the journey of a prospect to a client or customer always follows the same pattern. And the pattern is, I follow you online, I love your content, I get your emails, how do we work together? So I follow you online, I love your content, I get your emails, how do we work together? Some variation, some form, some steps take longer than the other, but they all follow that pattern. So the content machine is built in such a way to move people from I follow you online to how do we work together? That's the gist of it.
So how do you get people to really stick in there and follow you online and actually look for you online?
Well, they're not going to look for you. You have to go to where they're already looking. You have to be in the places they're already at. And so in our program, one of the first things we do is something called instant attention. And we call it instant attention because it's geared to get you instant attention, but it doesn't look the way most people think it is going to look. And the way most people think it should look is I post a tweet online, and then, the raving fans and the hordes of people are going to be beating down my door ready to work together. It doesn't work that way.
It's crickets out there.
It's crickets. And so that's when most people, after a while, sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's a month, sometimes it's a year. If all you hear is crickets, you eventually give up. I see that happen time and time and time again. I've been there myself, and it's not a fun activity to do day in, day out, is publishing all this content when seemingly you're getting little in return. And the first step is first for a reason, because again, you have to go to where the people are already at and engage with them in such a way that you get their attention. And I'll cut to the chase here, but the way that we get this process started is by engaging with people. We do a lot of outbound. So in other words, inbound is the goal, meaning you want people coming to you, and the content machine is engineered to do that. But ultimately, where it starts is you going out to the market and researching their pains or their fears, dreams, frustrations, and wants, asking a lot of questions, making a lot of offers, and picking strategic accounts that you're going to engage with to be seen by your dream client or your dream prospect. And the folks, at least in our program, who are successful, they're the ones who say, okay, this is going to be miserable. Like, let's just cut to the chase. It is getting started, getting attention, being seen in a world where attention is, it's the thing that we're all going after. And newsflash, every single business, every single media company, every single person, every single influencer, your competition is no longer just the other store down the street. Your competition is all those things I just listed, because we're all going for the same thing. That's attention. So we have to do something different. And what I've found most people are not willing to do is to actually go out and engage with influencers in your industry, accounts that you would love to work with, and putting in that work day after day after day. That gets the process started. That gets the flywheel moving. Now people are interested, and that moves you to the next step. But most people never get off the starting block, because the idea is, and we've all been fed this lie, right? So we've all been fed the lie that, oh, you just produce content and people will naturally, magically flock to you. It doesn't work that way. I wish it did, but it doesn't.
Yeah, I've been producing content for years and people don't flock to you.
No,
not at all. You have to go find them.
you have to find them. You have to show up to where they're already looking.
Mm-hmm. Do you have some ideas and suggestions on where a home service business could start looking to find people?
So the good news is, this is what I always think to myself, and I say this to my kids. Like, when we get stuck on a solution, we get stuck on a problem, or they come to me with a challenge, or I encounter a challenge of my own, I always think to myself, there's got to be somebody else on the planet who has figured this out. There's got to be somebody else on the planet who's doing what I want to be doing. There's got to be somebody else on the planet. I can't be the first one who has found a solution. And so what I do is I go and I look for those people who have found the solution. So, perfect example, easy connection. Mike Michalowicz was one of those people for me. So here's a guy who's doing what I want to be doing. I'm going to study him. I'm going to emulate what he's doing. I'm going to engage with him. And lo and behold, long story short, that led to Mike and I doing a project together. So I'm cutting through a lot of the micro steps, but big picture, it's paying attention to those folks in your industry who have the audience that you want, who have the business that you want. What we call it, emulate and engage. You emulate what they're doing, meaning you don't copy their content, but you emulate, the structure of their content. You emulate when they post. You emulate how often they post. You emulate how they engage with their audience. You emulate the vocabulary, the jargon, the words, the phrases. Put your own spin on it, of course. That's the nature of emulation. Emulation is not, a carbon copy, ripoff, duplicate. Emulation is saying, hey, there are principles, there are fundamentals at work in this person's business that I can study and learn from and duplicate in my own business with my own spin. So that's step number one, is to emulate. Step number two, as I mentioned, is to engage. Quick story on Mike. So I read his book, Profit First, like many of folks listening have as well. I read it, then I listened to it, then I read it again. It was so impactful for me. And I wrote him a note. I said, hey, Mike, you don't know me. This was many years ago. Mike, you don't know me. This book had a huge impact on my life. Just wanted you to know. Said some other nice things, blah, blah, blah. Sent it off. Didn't expect to get anything in return. Of course, Mike being Mike, he sent me back a handwritten letter with all of his books autographed. And I was like, yo, this guy's for real. So that started our relationship. And again, that relationship eventually landed us an opportunity to work together. That doesn't always have to end. It doesn't always end that way. Rarely does it end that way, but I'm sharing that story because those opportunities are ultimately what emulate and engage. That's what they lead to, is those types of opportunities.
And I think there's some amazing opportunities out there if people are willing to get in and do the work. Create
Yes.
that dream 50 list, dream 25 list, whatever it might be. Create that list of people and then start finding them. And what do they do? How do they do it? You'll learn
I've
a
not
lot.
had, so in our instant attention, which I talked about earlier, we have folks build their dream list. And I've not had someone, save one person, and I'll get to that here in a second. I've not had one person get through their entire list without a massive influx of opportunities. Now, those opportunities don't always mean, oh, Mr. Prospect became Mr. Client. Oftentimes it does, but sometimes it's podcast interviews. Sometimes it's speaking engagements. We've had people, move folks who have been on the line, prospects who've been on the line. They finally crossed over the line because, okay, this person reached out. Now, the one person, actually, it was two people. It's two business partners. They did this exercise. They actually ended up going through 300 names. They got to the end of the 300, 0 opportunities. And I very gently suggested, and they finally came to the conclusion themselves that, hey, this business actually is not serving a need in the marketplace. So we're just going to fold it. So they literally shut down their business. And that was 100% the right move because it freed them up to do something else. So the challenge, though, is doing that reach out is miserable. At least for me, it is anyway. Now, the good news is the process that we use anyhow, it's about 6 to 7 hours total. All right. So that's like an hour a day, a week. And it's amazing to me to watch through the years. Again, the folks who complete it, and I would say it's about a third. A third of the folks complete it, they win, they see tons of opportunities. A third of the folks never even start. And so, of course, they don't see opportunities. And then a third of the folks are in the middle. And they kind of, pardon the phrase, but they half-ass it. And that's the worst spot to be in, right? So, because when you commit to half measures, you don't really get yeses and you don't really get nos, right? The best answer in sales is a yes. Second best answer in sales is no. Third best answer in sales is, I bet you can guess.
I need to speak to somebody else about this.
Yes, a maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Worst answer in sales is a maybe. And so folks do it with half measures, and so they see half results. So if I could encourage anybody today, it's like, if you're going to commit to doing an activity like that, is to really tell yourself, I don't care what it takes. I don't care how miserable it is. I'm going to commit to this, and I'm going to do it from top to bottom all the way through. And I would be shocked if you don't see momentum from that.
What type of content seems to resonate the best? Is it just anything education based, or is it other kinds of content, a little bit more, here's the real me kind of content? I see a lot of both out there.
Yeah, if you would ask me this question 5 years ago, I'd have a completely different answer. But as of now, right now, this day, what I'm finding is, all right, so ChatGPT, everyone either uses it, knows about it, or has heard about it, right? So AI is increasing the quantity of content exponentially, right? Because you can go to ChatGPT, you can type in a prompt that says, type me 1,000-word blog post on such and such topic that's geared to such and such an audience. Literally 10 seconds later, you'll have a blog post. So now that there's this exponential increase in content, the value, I believe, doesn't necessarily come from the information itself. because now information has become a commodity. You can go to Google, you can go to YouTube, you can even create new content based off ChatGPT. Commodity, or the content is now, or I'm sorry, the knowledge, the information is a commodity. What I believe makes the most valuable content now is the application of that knowledge and the personality behind the person creating the application to the knowledge. So it's letting people into your daily life and showing how you apply the information that you're putting out via your content. That's where I believe the true value lies. And that's a difficult needle to thread, to be perfectly honest. It's really difficult. And so this is why when I talk about half measures, this is what I mean. When you commit to creating content, it's the same as, committing to a bookkeeper or a CPA or doing your books the right way so you don't get in trouble with Uncle Sam. It's content production, content creation has now, in my estimation, risen to the level of importance in the same way that you pay your taxes, you keep your books clean. Content creation is right above there. And the commitment it takes to do it the right way is significant. That's why many folks, and whether it's right or wrong doesn't really matter. I'm not here to say it's right or it's wrong. What I am here to say is the commitment to content is an investment. It's an investment in time, in energy, in effort. And I like to say to the CEOs, the founders, the business owners that we work with, this is a mindset shift, right? So you're telling the story of your business through your content. And that takes a level of commitment that I'm not sure many folks are prepared for.
Probably takes a level of awareness that they're not prepared for either.
Yes. Yeah. And listen, like I do this all day, every day. And there are definitely days where I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't even stomach the thought of creating more content today. And this is what I do for a living. So I understand completely, probably better than most, for a person, a business owner whose, business has nothing to do with marketing or content creation. Let's say you're a roofing company, or let's say you're a home services industry. Let's say you're a plumber or an HVAC company, right? You install like new air conditioning systems. You go and unclog businesses' stinky toilets. Or your people do. That's what they're busy doing. That's the business that you run. And so in many ways, it's almost unfair to say, hey, on top of all this, I want you to think about and, have a strategy for creating content. But here's the rub. Here's the rub. The rub is if you don't do it, your competition will, and they will win. They will win more clients. They will win more mind share. They will win more attention share. They will win more of the market because they're thinking about this stuff and because they've made it a priority. And so in many ways, for the smaller shops, it almost feels like it's unfair. And some, to be completely transparent, like some businesses make an intentional commitment to have nothing to do with content. And I would rather you make that intentional decision than, do it halfway. But if you're going to do it, you need to do it. Does that make sense?
Going back to get different and be all in.
Yeah. And by the way, all in doesn't mean like you're producing these volumes of content. I mean, that's why we created, like, the coaching program that I created is called Clients and Content. The tagline is more clients, less content, because I'm very sensitive of the fact that, like, small businesses and large businesses for that matter, most businesses have limited resources, and allocating those resources is part of being a business owner. So what I wanted to do is create a system. This is where the content machine came from, by the way, is to say, you have limited energy, effort, time, energy, resources, whatever, but you still want to play the content game. Here's how to do that in a way that's conducive to your budget and get you the opportunities that we've been talking about.
From a small business owner's viewpoint, I like something like that because
Yeah.
I know myself, I struggle terribly to keep client work done, build my next coaching program, and oh, by the way, stop and make sure you've created some content somewhere along that way.
Yes.
And that's a hard struggle to keep in balance.
I picked this up. I used to be a pastor at a church, Christian church for a long time. I was there for almost 10 years. And I learned a lot during my time at the church. And one of the main things that I learned was churches are masters at repurposing content. Think about it. Even if you're not a person of faith, you probably have a fundamental understanding about how a church service works. You go, you listen to a person talk on a specific, text, and everything's kind of geared around this one message. And the best churches take that one message, and the work's already been done, right? So that 60-minute message, they take it and they chop it up a million different ways. So they turn it into a podcast or multiple podcast episodes. They turn it into tweets, into Facebook posts. Again, we're talking about one 60-minute segment, and they chop it up and they repurpose it. They say the same thing because there's going to be a small amount of people who actually heard the original message. And even the people who do hear it originally, they're going to forget by the time they leave the building. So I kind of took that model and said, how do we do that, but for businesses? How do we take, a newsletter or a podcast or a YouTube show or whatever, do the work for that 30, 60 minutes, whatever, and then take it and repurpose it across all these different channels. And again, that's where the content machine comes in, because you essentially plug it in and out comes all these different content pieces.
That could be a lifesaver for your average business owner.
So it's not more volume. It's not creating more content in the sense of like, oh my goodness, I have to sit down and create original content. No, like I'll give you an example. My emails, I almost always will usually I look at, okay, what was the best performing email this week? And I'll almost always turn that email into the beginnings of a blog post. I'll turn it into a Twitter thread. Occasionally I'll pull that into Instagram. So, from one email that took me about 30 minutes to write, I've pulled 4 to 6 content pieces from that one email. And that's a skill that just needs to be developed, but it's totally doable for anybody listening to this.
You make it sound so easy, Justin.
It's simple. It's not easy.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, you have really piqued my interest in this, because this is an area I've struggled with forever, is how to keep it all rolling. So where could our listeners get some more information about you if they wanted to dig into your content machine, or if they wanted to get involved in any of your other programs you have rolling? Because I know you have several of them. What's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Easiest way to go to my website, justinwise.net. There's a box there right when you go there. That's to sign up for my newsletter. You can hear about everything that I'm doing through that newsletter. Again, that newsletter, just so y'all know, is the basis in most cases for my content for the week. So you can see it in action if you sign up. You'll not only learn something from the actual content we're producing, but you can also see, if you follow me online after signing up for that newsletter, you'll see how the process works. And of course, if you want to dive even further, we do have resources on that site to help you. If you are interested in the content machine, there's a place you can go on my website as well. But first things first, go and sign up for the newsletter.
All right. Thank you again, Justin. It's been amazing having you on the show. And hopefully, at some point, we'll get you to come back and talk about some more about this, because these types of topics change constantly. Just when you think you've got it figured out, Google changes something or Facebook changes something or whatever, and now you've got to go figure it out again. So it's not a one and done.
Not
So,
one and done.
yeah. So thank you again. And
Yep.
thank you, listeners, for tuning into the show again on this episode and learning a little bit more about how we can fill some of these profit leaks in our businesses. And according to what Justin just showed us, maybe not have to work quite so hard to look good out there in the internet world. Thank you again, Justin. Thank you, everybody. We'll catch you on the next episode.